Hi, welcome again, Stephen Oliver, and we're joined here by Mindy Godfrey and Greg Moody. And we wanted to spend just a thumbnail sketch here for a second on using direct mail effectively. And I've been doing this bozo explosion of podcasts recently and listening, and it dawned on me. It seems like nobody who's giving financial advisors advice on how to run their business knows a damn thing about using direct mail, and they all keep referring to it as snail mail, which I find entertaining as well. Let's give you one statistic, by the way. And Greg, you may be more up to date on this one than I am. How many emails does the average person actually get per day?
It just bumped over 200. It's like 214, I think, last check, that the average person gets that many emails in their inbox every day. That doesn't mean that's how many even got sent to them, because a lot of them probably went to spam. That's how many get in their inbox.
Yeah. So email, it's in their inbox. Then it's in the what's Google call it, the promotional or the marketing or the spam folder. Google has a spam folder, but then they have a promotional folder, right? So you cannot be put in the spam folder, but put in the promotional folder. Recently, it was I think Yahoo was just broad scale throwing away anything that was sent to more than one recipient. AOL, of course, has always been. I mean, I'm surprised it's still alive, but AOL has always been just kind of throwing email away. So you have a deliverability problem. Then you have a problem with going into the spam folder, and then you have the problem with being put in the promotional folder. And of the 200, even if you get them to open, it doesn't mean they looked at anything, right? So they, a good open rate of somebody who knows you. What would you say, Greg? 25 to 35%?
Oh, it's even lower, about 20%. And and it's getting lower all the time. So it's not a bad thing to use. We do help people use email, but you can't depend. And the big point is you can't depend on email. And you just hit on some of the pieces. If you listed all the pieces, we'd spend all day listing all the little things that have to happen to get good deliverability on email.
Yeah, yeah. And compare that with direct mail. So the last stat I saw, and this isn't like holiday season, so we're right in the middle of Christmas holiday, and I'm getting 5 catalogs a day. Of course, I try to be on everybody's list just to pay attention to this stuff. But most people get like 4 pieces of mail a day, right? So you get 4 pieces of mail in your mailbox per day versus you're getting over 200 emails per day. And that's just one way of thinking about it. But here's another way of thinking about it is most people that we send a message to, doesn't matter whether it's a postcard or it's a 22-page letter. Oh, it matters, but whatever the message is, they often aren't ready to like pick up the phone and take immediate action. It's why when they go to your website, you give them an opt-in option, and then you drip on them, right? You keep educating them and warming them up. But direct mail is the same way. What's different about direct mail is now there's something tangible. There's a postcard they got or something, or a letter they got. And guess what? What most people do, like I let it stack on my kitchen counter for all the stuff that I intend to do something with, and aren't ready to do it right now. Some people put it on the magnet on the refrigerator. But when it gets to them physically, there's a different dynamic in the way they interact with it than if it's a email or a text message, right? It's not nobody, but it's so rare for somebody to save an email and never look at it, or to take an email and actually go print it out and hold on to that, right? Is they glance at it and it's gone. They glance at it, they click, they do something, they don't do it, it's gone. But with mail, it stacks up and they pay attention, and it's at least 10 times more likely than say an email for them to do something with. The other thing with direct mail is, again, you want to compare email, text messaging, and mail. And I know the reason why advisors are loath to do mail. I was just hearing again one of these other podcasts, the guys going, "Oh, direct mail is so expensive. It's so expensive." Well, they're buried in this world of sending email, driving them to a blog post, doing a podcast. All that's great. We do all of that stuff, but they're in that mode of not recognizing that, if I sent 20 emails to people who are getting 200 pieces in their inbox per day, that's like the equivalent of one piece of direct mail. in terms of getting somebody to pay attention to it, right? The other thing I was, again, hearing a bunch of people talk, say bad, not bad things, but just stupid things about direct mail is what makes direct mail work is number one, the list that you mail it to. And then number two, having an offer, a call to action. And what you get is an awful lot of folks in our business, it doesn't matter whether it's a financial advisor or, it's, another professional like an attorney, they all tend to do, here I am. If you ever need me, call me, here I am. It's got to have a call to action, right? It's got to have, here's a free report, here's a seminar. It's why, where financial advisors do use direct mail effectively, tends to mostly be truncated over here to, invite you to a lunch seminar or a dinner seminar or something like that. But it has to have a call to action, a way to respond. It needs an alternate path where there's take action on this thing right now, or there's another path of join our email list, join our, learn more information, maybe get a free book or something. But there's alternate paths for response of I'm ready to move right now. I'd like to learn more, right? But that's number one is the list. And what you've got to know is, again, the first place to start, where I always start with direct mail, is every prospect that I've had that came in that I don't have as a client, I use direct mail to keep dripping on them and keep warming them back up and keep educating, right? Because that's the best list I have. The second list would be people who, let's say they opted in on the website or through some other mechanism, maybe they were a referral, and mailing them information to move them into our pipeline. And I do all of that stuff or a client who left for some reason to get them back in to do reactivations. So if you look at, those are your three warmest lists that you can start with. And that beats all day long. Let's just try to figure a bunch of people, draw a 5-mile radius around our office and target it. What would you add to that quickly, Greg?
Well, and I think that people miss the opportunity because they're throwing in direct mail just to en masse to everybody. Like, because that doesn't work as well. And maybe back in the 20 years ago, maybe that was one of the only options you had, because you didn't have email and you didn't have a lot of other internet methods to work that we agree you should use, but because that was a method that used to work well and then it started working less well because the strategies changed, then people kind of abandon that strategy. But what you're saying is exactly right. People need to use that strategy, but use it the correct way. And frankly, even 15, 20 years ago, what you're saying needed to be used properly. Direct mail, it was just that was maybe one of the only strategies available to them. In other words, they didn't have as many things, like they didn't have email. But email is getting worse and worse and worse as far as effectiveness. Again, it should be used because it's pretty cheap and inexpensive and easy and a method that we need to include. But direct mail's another tool in the toolbox that can't be ignored. Doesn't and should be used rather liberally, especially in some of the niches that you're talking about. Especially when we get prospects, when prospects are opting into things that we do to capture their address or to get more information about them, or if somebody calls or gets information the first time, to send them mail. That's critical.
Yeah. Well, and you want to take it from online to offline as quickly as possible, right? And that's a mistake that people make, is I can be buying Google clicks, I can be doing SEO, I can be doing podcasts, Facebook advertising, LinkedIn advertising, but I don't want to create the lead in a digital environment and keep it there. What I want to do is I want to create the lead in a digital environment and bring them offline. Frankly, I want to go the other direction as well. If I was sending a postcard and getting a response, I want to get them into the email list. I want to get them into the retargeting list. I want to get them into all that as well. We want all of it to be working together all at the same time, right? But what I see more often is the problem is the online leads, they don't collect a mailing address. You've got to give them an excuse for collecting a mailing address. That's where having your own book is a wonderful thing, or at least having a white paper special report, et cetera, something that's a lead magnet, but something that you're going to physically mail to them. And now once I've got that mailing address, of course, I can sequentially mail to them. And all this, by the way, the lead follow-up part, we automated all right. So we have, a new lead comes in, so somebody can follow our process. Just go to advisorwealthmastery.com. I mean, we do everything from mail out a big box like this to, a sequence of postcards and, notes and, and one thing or another, but it's all automated. So,
well, by the way, all that stuff's really useful for the guys listening on this call. It's very valuable information, and that's what we're recommending doing. It's not just, it's not a trick. It's to provide stuff that's useful for the potential prospects that maybe they don't become prospects, but if it's useful enough, that's why they would respond and give you the mailing address so that they can get the useful information.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes you two-step it. So sometimes you get an email address and a phone number, and then you get a mailing address. The other thing is, by the way, this is off topic, but I've been opting into everybody's stuff everywhere. And the amount of follow-up is abysmal, right? Mindy, I tell you, every time somebody actually mails me something, I go, wow, somebody actually mailed me something. I got some. Usually it's like one phone call, maybe two phone calls, and they give up, or they send me a bunch of emails and then give up. Every now and then somebody who's smart relative will send a text and a couple calls and a couple of emails, but the level of follow-up is just abysmal, especially, and I was hearing somebody talking about, what is it, Smart Asset. There's a couple of these places where they generate leads and they feed it to advisors, but a lot of times they're feeding it to 2 or 3 people at once. Well, whoever gets to them first is going to get them. And you want it to be when the lead comes in, a text goes out, a live person calling goes out, a voicemail goes out, an email goes out, and then mail is in the mail to them right away. Where most people aren't going to do that. They're just going to, tomorrow they're going to call the leads, hope they get hold of them, then give up pretty quickly. It's just pathetic. But
Yeah.
anyway, we'll have to leave it at that. But we'll do more in a more focused fashion on lists, on doing cold direct mail, on finding the right people, on niching down to find the right target audiences. Is again an advantage of a niche. If you're going to be the advisor for dentists or the advisor for architects or commercial realtors, that makes it a lot easier than you're just trying to, everybody who has assets over $500,000 or something like that. It's a much easier approach to go. On that note, we'll call it a day here. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.